which I had discussed in my last class. So let me share the screen with you. So this is the poem, The Perfume Crisis, and uh, we will discuss this poem today, and we have one more poem left in this collection, that is the Owl's Love Song, which we will be doing after this. So let me explain this poem first. So here, as you know, the original Bengali version is Gandha Bichar in the Bengali version. So here, obviously, Sukumar Rai is presenting how in a court, in a royal court, the minister or the vizier, as he is here referred to, he has applied a kind of a new perfume on his uh, clothes, and no one can understand the nature of this perfume. And so the king calls, not this one, but this poem, the king calls everyone who is present, but no one is able to uh, tell for sure, or no one is willing to smell the particular perfume. So now he starts to call first the um, doctor, then the chancellor, then the chief of police, then the first wrestler, and ultimately his brother-in-law. But all of them, uh, they deny, or they say that they have some problem or the other. They would not be able to smell this odor. So suddenly this Nazir, or the old usher, who is 90 years old, he comes and he smells this odor. So here, obviously, we find that the king becomes stern and adamant. He wants to know the nature of the mystery, about this mysterious odor. Now, no one is obliging him. So the readers of this poem, until this point of the narrative, obviously, we as readers, we become amused at the strange escapism of the courtiers. And at the same time, we become more and more curious about the smell. So obviously, uh, it is not a poisonous smell, obviously, but somehow or the other, um, no courtier is uh, agreeing to smell this odor. So everyone is giving one excuse or the other. Now it is noticeable that the nonagerian, or a person who has reached the age of 90, is called a nonagerian, Nonagenian. That is the usher. He was seated at the backside of the court, and the important people whom the king considered to be important, they were sitting at the backside, or rather at the front. But all of them proved a failure. They could not explain, or they could not oblige the king. So the old usher thought that he would die maybe 2 or 3 years later, because he was extremely old and infirm. So he understood, he made a practical decision that if he died now, smelling this odor, it did not matter. But if he survived, uh, he would get a handsome reward. So he asked the king that he would smell this odor, but he asked for a gift. So the bakshish or reward was granted by the king. So it really can't hurt to be bold. So he showed a lot of courage, where everyone was feeling um, afraid. So he plucked up his courage. As it is mentioned, I'll gladly abide, of course, for a fit compensation. So 1,000 gold pieces shall be your reward. The king declares that he would get 1,000 gold pieces. So it was a very big, uh, reward. So here, Shukumar Rai has shown that how the people who appeared to be dependent or who appeared to be dependable for the king actually let him down. So the king had thought that he would be able to understand the nature of the odor from the either the firstly the uh, chancellor, then the chief of police was summoned, the first wrestler, and ultimately his own brother-in-law. But these people who were close to the king, they could not provide him with a solution, but only the old usher who was sitting at the back of the court, he ultimately, to the utter surprise of the other courtiers, went up to the minister and uh, planting his nose right onto the cloak of you know, the vizier, he smelled that odor. So amidst high applause. So obviously we can understand that this is a kind of a criticism of the sycophants or the people who try to remain in the good books of the king by saying good words or funny things or trying to amuse the king all the time. But ultimately, when the time comes for them to do a serious job, they fail. And that is why, obviously, here also the same thing happens. A person who is relatively unimportant, like the usher, who has been relegated to the backside of the court, he ultimately comes in and does the job for the king. So the king's curiosity regarding the smell coming from the uh, vizier's clothes, the ancient vizier, uh, it is satisfied. He understands that it is not something poisonous or nothing bad. So it's a good smell, as the vizier had declared at the outset. So this is the poem, and it is a simple enough poem, and of course a funny poem like all the other poems in Abol Tabol that we have read so far. So obviously it has a message here, and if we try to analyze it, of course, the first thing that comes to our notice is the whimsical nature of the king. The king is interested to know the nature of this perfume. It is a simple matter, and he suspects that the ancient vizier or the Montri had applied some mysterious odor to his clothes. So it is a simple matter like a perfume it is raised to an exaggerated level. So some dramatic events take place. So obviously it's the whimsical king, which obviously he wants to know the exact opinion of an expert. And that is why he calls out uh, the names of these persons, the courtiers, one after another. Now, obviously, they are all afraid that the smell is poisonous, that they would be killed if they smell that odor, and that is why they refuse to oblige the king. So they say that I have a bad cold, or I have a fever, or I have taken betel leaf, so I would not be able to smell that smell. So they all disappoint the king. And the climax of the drama occurs when, of course, the old nonagerian usher comes in and he finally smells this odor. So it is a heroic feat for the old Nazir or the usher, and the mystery of the odor is finally revealed. So the poem is, of course, a specimen of a wonderful sense of humor and dramatic presentation that is, of course, quite clear, but it makes a mountain of a molehill, tilke tal kora, as it is said in Bengali. So a simple odor applied on the clothes of the ancient vizier is exaggerated uh, to a great extent. So there are 7 characters beside the king and the minister or the vizier, and the 7 characters are noted with or described with a lot of realism, except the usher and the brother-in-law. They all sort of invent some kind of excuse to avoid smelling the cloth. So they do not want to take any risk. So this poem, as you can see, it is written in the form of a dialogue. The king shouts the name of a particular person or the uh, kind of the post which that person holds, and that person comes in and he expresses his inability to smell the odor. So obviously here the poem is it gradually builds up in dramatic mystery. There's a lot of drama regarding this perfume that is coming out of the clothes of the ancient vizier. So obviously, um, here the king himself did not want to smell this odor, because obviously that would uh, mean that he would be kind of, you can say, it would be beneath his dignity to smell the that odor coming out of the clothes of the ancient vizier or the minister. So this is the poem or the analysis of the poem, like um, you know all his other poems that we have read. There is an inner meaning where the whimsical nature and the king, he knows that it might be a poisonous smell which might kill that person who is going to smell it, but still he goes on announcing the names and almost forcing them to smell that odor, perfume. So it also is a kind of a criticism of the nature of the ruler, his whimsical nature, and also the way he compels the courtiers one after another to smell that odor in spite of their unwillingness. So this is the poem Gandhobichar, or the perfume crisis. It is also translated by some translators as odor in the court. Now we have, after finishing the analysis of this poem, we have just one single poem left from Abol Tabol, and that is the Owl's Love Song. This is the poem that we have to read now, and after that, I will analyze this poem. So let us look at this poem. The title, of course, it points to that the owl is he is singing a kind of a love song to his beloved. Uh, Obviously, he is addressing his wife, that is the Panchani, as in the Pacha and the Panchani. So said the owl to his mate, "Oh my peach, how sweet I ever is your screech." So it is night time, and the owl and his mate are sitting side by side on the branch of a tree, and this owl is addressing his mate, and he says that you are a peach, that is, you are a wonderful uh, bird, you are a gem, and your screech, that is your you know the way you call out, it is extremely sweet to my ear. I ever means I state. Each squawk that your mandibles utter reduces my heart to a flutter. Now, mandible, it means the lower of the two bones in the face, which contain the teeth. So here it actually has been used in case of the owl, though it is a human kind of it is the largest and the strongest bone in the face. So the lower part of the jaw, that is. So the owl means to say that your squawks or your screeches, the sounds that you utter, it reduces my heart to a flutter. So I am all aflutter. I love your uh, sounds. The croaking crescendos you capture inspire me with fathomless rapture. So the kind of the hooting of the owl, that is, obviously he is very much in love with her way of expressing herself. So it makes him really ecstatic. Your tremolo flows all a quiver. The trees grow ecstatic and shiver. So tremolo, here it means it is a kind of a musical technique, and it means a kind of a rapid or quivering or trembling sound. So it is something that is a rapid kind of a sound, musical sound. So the owl finds the call of his mate to be full of music, all a quiver. So it is a trembling, quivering sound. The trees grow ecstatic and shiver. So even nature itself, the trees around them, they are uh, they are becoming ecstatic, full of joy when they hear your call. And oh, what an intricate tangle of titters you mix and you mangle. So the kind of laugh that you titter is a kind of embarrassed or nervous laugh. So you mix your call with your titters or laughing. So it's a kind of a mingling. It's a mixture of your musical voice and laughs. So everything points to this, the way uh, this call of the owl is mixed with its uh, the song like call. So obviously, though we know that the owl is not a bird which is noted for its You can say it's sweet song, like the cuckoo, uh, or any other bird. Of course, it has a very harsh call, but here the male owl is addressing the female owl, and he is saying that it is a most uh, melodious song. All torment and trembling and sorrow, despond for the past and the morrow. So he is all aflutter. He is saying that it um, reduces me to all kinds of sorrow and trembling and torment. So it's strange how he finds it very soothing or lovely. Despond for the past and the morrow. So he feels so nostalgic for the past and looks forward to the morrow, means the future. The pit a pat play of my tensions are drowned by your dulcet inventions. So all my anxieties, all my tensions are drowsed, meaning drowned, or they are drowned by your dulcet, meaning musical, sweet, sweet sounding inventions, meaning your calling. So every kind of sorrow and negative emotions are thrown away, they disappear. So it is a kind of a, the song has a most positive and wonderful effect on this owl. Such strains from your sweet pout leaping unman me with measureless weeping. So he is saying that it is a kind of a song that obviously uh, when it comes out of your mouth, pout meaning mouth, it unmans me. Uh, Unman, of course, it relates to the human beings, but he's trying to say that it moves me so much that I start to weep. So tears come out from my eyes. I am so moved by your lovely singing or lovely voice. So this is the owl's love song. It is, of course, a funny poem. The Bengali version is, of course, uh, more fun to read. Pacha koi pachani, khasha tor chachani. So all these uh, rhyming that Sukumar Rai presents. Now, obviously, here it is a humorous parody. If we analyze the poem, just as a man would serenade his beloved by praising her singing, so here it happens with this bird, the owl, which is a bird of prey and not known for its melodious voice. In fact, it has a very harsh kind of a voice. But the owl finds this harsh screeching and squawking of its mate to be of a high musical quality. So obviously, here the central theme of the poem is, of course, the it is absurdly exaggerated of the romantic expression of admiration that we find here. So the poet Sukumar Rai is sort of satirizing the romantic poetry where all these exaggerations were made. So the attempts at romance of this owl becomes laughable rather than moving. So it is a kind of a absurd kind of a situation where this owl finds the harsh call of his mate to be very soothing and extremely beautiful. So the contrast between appearance and reality is, of course, there. But as we see, the owl tries to imagine himself as a passionate lover or someone who appreciates his lady love's voice. But of course, it is an awkward kind of a situation. So much of the poem's humor comes out at the way he goes on praising his beloved's voice. So, as a nonsense poem, obviously, we can understand that it is really very funny that an owl praising the song of its beloved. So there are absurd situations. The central characters are not human beings, but two birds. There are unexpected imageries, exaggerated emotions. There is playful language and sound, and the birds are given human qualities. They are, as it were, made into kind of anthropomorphized, so given human qualities. So the romantic ideals expressed and the ridiculous figure of this owl, it clashes. So the comic effect is created through this linguistic play and incongruity. So this poem, we can take it as pure nonsense, but it can also be read as a satire on melodramatic lovers and the overly sentimental poetry that was written. So, Sukumar Rai is perhaps satirizing this particular aspect also. So, placing these emotions in the mouth of an owl, Sukumar Rai exposes their comic potential. So the owl, as a bird, it becomes a caricature of the self-important lover who believes his feelings are profound, but he appears foolish to everyone else. So Sukumar Rai uses this technique to parody romantic conventions. Now, the owl, as I said, is anthropomorphized, meaning he is given human emotions and he behaves like a human being, a human lover. So he has fallen in love. He is expressing romantic longings. He is singing or he is appreciating his beloved singing, and he behaves like a dramatic lover. So he does all these things like human beings, but he does not lose his essential owl-like nature. So this combination of human and animal traits, avian traits, bird-like traits, creates this comic incongruity. So the character of this owl or the image of this owl is both absurd and familiar. Of course, it becomes a memorable character in Abol Tabol. Now, if we look at the language and style of this poem, of course, Sukumar Rai, like in the other poems, we can find his command of sound and rhythm, musical and lyrical, rich in alliteration, filled with amusing sound patterns, and it can be easily remembered, like his poems. It's easy to memorize, and one can recite this poem. So, Sukumar Rai's use of nonsense words and playful expressions creates an atmosphere of delight, of course, in the hearts of the young readers, but also, uh, you know, older readers, adults can also appreciate the poem. So the rhythm of the poem, it mimics the movement of a song. It makes the poem highly entertaining even when its literal meaning is absurd. Now let us come to the imagery of this poem. Now the imagery in this poem is imaginative rather than realistic. So Sukumar Rai, what he has done here, he has created a whimsical world where animals sing, they love, and they behave like human beings. So the whole situation kind of mirrors the situation of the human world. So the comic images appeal to children's imagination while it entertains the adult readers. So children will find it extremely amusing that that an owl is saying all these things to its mate, while the adults will find out the uh, inner meaning of this poem. So the visual image of a lovesick owl serenading his beloved is itself enough to evoke laughter. And the ridiculous nature of the scene becomes the poem's chief artistic strength. So, on analysis of this poem, of course, it is a short poem, as you can see here, uh, about 16 lines. So, here in this short, span, Sukumar Rai has presented in a very beautiful way the humorous situation. So, like the other poems of Abol Tabol, obviously that collection had revolutionized um, Bengali children's literature by introducing this nonsense verse into Bengali. So the poems can operate, all the poems that we have done, that are there in your syllabus. So they are operating on multiple levels. Children enjoy the humor and fantasy, while adults appreciate the satire, the wordplay, and the subtle social observations. So our conclusion regarding this poem would be that it is much more than a funny poem. It is a funny poem, of course, about an owl in love, how it is expressing its admiration and ecstasy. But though it is a kind of a nonsensical or a parody, Sukumar Roy has transformed this uh, song into a brilliant comic performance. So the poem mocks exaggerated romantic sentiment while celebrating imagination and playful language. So its enduring popularity lies in its ability to make readers laugh while simultaneously inviting them to reflect on the absurdities of human behavior. So the kind of absurd situation that we find here, the owl is so ecstatic regarding his beloved's singing, which is of course not at all melodious, but to the owl it appears very beautiful and melodious. So there is an absurd situation here. And as a result, this poem, it becomes one of the finest examples of Sukumar Rai's genius of writing nonsense verse. So this is the owl's love song, and with this, we have come to the end of the collection Abol Tabol, and I hope that you have understood or you have followed the both the analysis of the perfume crisis and the owl's love song. So, if you have any questions, you may, of course, ask me.